Breaking: imagine sitting across from your child on national television, watching every eye in the room on you, and hearing words that cut through your soul. Words you never thought you'd hear out loud. That's exactly what happened when Mary Cosby, the most polarizing housewife in reality TV history, revealed something on the season 6 reunion of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City that nobody was ready for. Millions watched, jaws dropped, and then the unthinkable happened weeks later. She told the world, with tears in her eyes, that she would rather have her son locked up in jail than dead. Think about that! A mother on camera laying her heart bare, calculating the unthinkable because she knew the stakes. And now, shockingly, the very thing she feared came true. Her only child, Robert Cosby Jr., was found lifeless in her home. 23 years old, gone. In a world obsessed with reality TV drama, this isn't entertainment anymore. This is real, heartbreaking, devastating. What exactly happened behind the cameras? How did a young man with a bright personality, a turbulent past, and a mother willing to fight for him end up dead just weeks after being released from jail? And what does this shocking revelation from Mary Cosby mean for the entire Bravo universe, for her, and for everyone who has been watching her family's story unfold for years? Stick around, because what we're about to uncover will shock you, outrage you, and make you question everything you thought you knew about reality TV, family, and tragedy. It started as just another night in Salt Lake City. But for Mary Cosby, nothing was ever ordinary. Sitting on that reunion couch, under the harsh lights and the cameras that never blinked, she looked out at her castmates and revealed a truth that would haunt reality TV forever. "I'd rather him be in jail than dead," she said, and for anyone who watched, it wasn't just words. It was a mother's raw, unfiltered fear, a truth that cut through the glitz, the arguments, the taglines, and the staged catfights. Those words lingered in the air like a warning no one wanted to hear, a prelude to the tragedy that would come just 34 days later. Robert Cosby Jr., her only child, was found lifeless in his mother's home. Just 23 years old, leaving a city, a fan base, and an entire reality TV franchise reeling. Robert's story was never simple. From the moment he was born into a family that was always in the public eye, he carried expectations, scrutiny, and the weight of a mother whose life was larger than life itself. Mary Cosby has always been a lightning rod for controversy, and the Bravo cameras loved her for it. But behind the designer dresses, the extravagant parties, and the viral social media posts, there was a family struggling with real demons. Robert's journey with addiction began when he was just 16, a boy who sought solace in pills, powders, and substances that promised relief but delivered chaos. Xanax to calm, Adderall to balance, cocaine to escape, oxycodone to cope, and heroin when the world became too heavy. By the time he was on national television, confessing to millions, he had already lived through years of silent battles. He told his mother, "I wanted to die at the time. I just felt like a stain. I felt like this world wasn't for me." And she responded like any mother would, with love, guilt, and an unbearable sense of responsibility. "If I don't blame myself, whose fault is it?" She admitted, her voice breaking for all to hear. The public watched every moment, a mix of fascination, judgment, and sympathy. The Bravo machine turned personal pain into episodic drama, but what no one could package neatly into an episode was the reality of Robert's disease. Addiction isn't linear, it doesn't pause for cameras, and it certainly doesn't disappear just because rehab certificates are issued. He completed a 30-day program in December 2024, and Mary celebrated, announcing to the world that her son was a new person. But as viewers would learn, the chemistry of addiction does not reset. The pull never disappears. Season 6 aired with Robert admitting that a relapse had occurred. "It's still there," he said, almost casually, almost dismissively, but anyone who understands the trajectory of opioid use disorder would know the gravity of that statement. Every pill, every dose, every temptation was a step on a tightrope over an abyss. And Mary, as much as she loved him, could only do so much. The timeline of Robert's last year was a brutal series of escalations. He quietly married a woman named Alexiana Smokoff in 2022, keeping it hidden from his mother until reality TV forced the revelation on camera. By 2025, that relationship had deteriorated into violence, arrests, and court orders. September 5th, 2025, domestic violence arrest. September 7th, breaking into his father-in-law's home, assault charges. October 7th, protective order. November 9th, another arrest involving property damage and assault on an officer. November 25th, guilty plea on multiple charges, 6 others dismissed, and the same day, Alexiana filed for divorce. By February 2026, Robert was finally released from jail with probation and community service as a lifeline, a chance to start over. A fragile thread of hope stretched across a storm of past mistakes. 2 days later, more felony charges emerged, linked to incidents months before and the weight of the law, addiction, and personal turmoil pressed down on him like an anvil. Mary's Instagram posts in early February reflected cautious hope. "My beautiful son, I love him so much. Thank you all for your prayers," she wrote on February 7th, just 4 days after his release. But the celebration was short-lived. February 23rd arrived with the police responding to a call classified as a possible overdose at Mary's home. Inside, Robert was unresponsive. Narcan had been administered, but it was too late. The 911 audio, obtained exclusively by insiders, paints a chilling picture, the flat procedural tone of dispatchers relaying 23-year-old male. Not conscious, not breathing, 1 dose of Narcan given. 3 units en route. That one detail, the Narcan, tells the story more clearly than any headline. It's an opioid reversal drug, and it signals the suspicion that this tragedy was tied to the very addiction that had haunted him for years. Salt Lake City Police Detective Michael Ruff confirmed the death, but the medical examiner's report has yet to provide details. Toxicology results are pending, leaving the public with speculation, grief, and unanswered questions. TMZ broke the story February 25th, and within hours, the Bravo world, the reality TV universe, and millions of fans were reeling. Mary and Robert Sr. released a statement steeped in faith and grief. "Our beloved son, Robert Jr., has been called home to the Lord, though our hearts ache. We take comfort in God's promise and in knowing He is finally at peace." A second statement from family attorney Clayton Sims painted the human side of the story. Robert Jr. was warm, funny, kind, and gone far too soon. Every word underscored the incomprehensibility of losing someone so young, someone whose life had already been under the harsh glare of cameras and public scrutiny. The Bravo cast flooded social media with condolences. Heather Gay wrote, "There are no words big enough. We love you, Mary." Lisa Barlow's post offered a prayer. Whitney Rose went quiet with a broken heart emoji. And even Julia Fox commented, "I will never get over this. I'm so sorry, Mary." The absence of some members, like Meredith Marks or Angie Katavas, only added tension to the narrative. Silence, in a world built on cameras and sound bites, speaks volumes. It's a reminder that while reality TV thrives on drama, real life cannot be paused or edited. On camera, Robert Jr. had bared everything. He described his drug use with brutal honesty: pills, powders, everything from Xanax to heroin. He shared suicidal thoughts and the crushing shame that accompanies addiction. Mary's response, captured for millions, was both heartbreaking and human. She told him he was her gift, her friend, and her responsibility. The cameras caught the love, the guilt, and the desperate hope that someone, somewhere, could intervene before it was too late. But the timeline after rehab and jail was unforgiving. The first 20 days post-incarceration are statistically the deadliest for opioid users. Tolerance drops and the body, cut off from substances for weeks or months, can no longer handle doses once survivable. It's a window where tragedy is almost expected, and in Robert's case, that window closed with fatal precision. Mary Cosby's own life is a storm of controversies. From her Smellgate episode to marriage scandals, cold allegations, and legal battles, she has been a figure of fascination and criticism. Yet through every scandal, her role as a mother, particularly with Robert Jr., remained unwavering. She called him daily in jail, posted his release with gratitude, and publicly owned the guilt and love intertwined with parenting a child battling addiction. The layers of reality TV, public judgment, and personal grief collided in February 2026 in a way that made headlines and left the public stunned. And yet, the story doesn't stop at the personal tragedy. Season 7 of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City was set to begin filming just days after Robert's death. The production, prepped with a returning cast and a new addition, came to an immediate halt. For Bravo, for Mary, and for viewers, the tragedy now becomes the story. Cameras that once captured confessions, arguments, and orchestrated drama will now witness grief, processing, and loss. It raises questions about the intersection of reality TV and real life. How does turning personal pain into entertainment affect those living it? Does exposure add pressure, shame, or a layer of difficulty in recovery? No one knows for sure, but in Robert Jr.'s case, the answers are painfully visible. Social media, as always, amplified every angle. Reddit threads, Twitter reactions, shade room commentary, and fan tributes painted a city in mourning. Discussions didn't revolve around taglines or catfights. They were about human loss, addiction, and a mother grappling with the death of her only child. Hashtags like #RipRobert, #MaryCosby, and #RHLC trended, while the public collectively tried to make sense of the tragedy. Reality TV, which thrives on dramatized conflict, suddenly found itself powerless against the rawness of life and death. The addiction epidemic, post-incarceration overdose risks, and public scrutiny converged in a way that no one could spin into a simple narrative. Robert Jr. was funny, kind, flawed, criminally charged, battling substance use, and caught in a spotlight he never asked for. Mary Cosby, polarizing as she may be, was the constant, the mother, the advocate, the one trying to hold it all together while cameras rolled. When the 911 call came, when Narcan failed, and when police confirmed the death, the truth was simple and unbearable, the very thing she had feared. The scenario she had calculated and dreaded had happened. And so here we are, left to watch, analyze, and question. The Bravo world, the fans, and the media continue to process what happened, and yet the layers keep unfolding. Addiction, reality TV exposure, legal entanglements, public scrutiny, they all played a part in the final, tragic outcome. Mary Cosby's words from the reunion couch, "I'd rather him be in jail than dead," now echo in a world that once celebrated every episode, every confession, every tear. That echo is painful, haunting, and impossible to ignore. The shock isn't just in the death itself. It's in the build-up, the confessions, the missed opportunities, the statistics, the timeline, and the camera lenses that never blinked. It's in the fact that a 23-year-old caught between fame, addiction, and family could be gone within a month of release, leaving everyone grappling with grief that cannot be edited out. The tragedy sits in the intersection of celebrity, disease, family, and public obsession. A perfect storm that no scripted episode could ever hope to convey. The Bravo cameras, which once chronicled the highs and lows, now face a silence that no producer can manufacture. Mary Cosby's grief, Robert Sr.'s quiet support, the cast's reactions, the fan outpouring, and the national media coverage combine into a narrative that is raw, uncontrollable, and devastatingly real. It is a story that transcends reality television, a story that forces us to confront the human cost of addiction, public scrutiny, and exposure, and that's where we leave it for now. The first wave of shock, the heartbreaking facts, and the unbearable weight of reality that no show could ever dramatize enough. The day Robert Cosby Jr.'s death broke was a day that no Bravo fan or reality TV observer could ignore. The headlines hit like a storm. Robert Cosby Jr. found dead at mother's home. Mary Cosby's worst fear comes true. 23-year-old reality star's tragic end, but as with any story of this magnitude, the surface barely scratched the depths of the chaos, the secrets, and the heartbreak that defined the past months of Robert's life. Behind closed doors, there were whispers, leaks, and questions that the public was desperate to know. What really happened in those 20 days after his release? Who was with him? Who administered Narcan? And why did the very person who had fought so hard to keep him alive now have to face the ultimate loss? Sources speaking under strict anonymity told insiders that Robert's final weeks were a volatile mix of hope, temptation, and sheer unpredictability. He had moved back into his mother's home, where Mary tried to shield him from old habits, old friends, and the pressures of the outside world. She had called him every day while he was in jail. She had posted Instagram updates celebrating his sobriety. And she had even coordinated with his attorney, Clayton Sims, to ensure that Robert had structure and support. But even with all of that, addiction has a way of slipping through the smallest cracks. Narcan being administered before police even arrived signals that someone knew what was coming, that someone recognized the danger. And yet, the intervention was not enough. The body, after forced abstinence, was no longer capable of surviving the substances that once seemed manageable. The public reaction was immediate and intense. Twitter erupted with grief, speculation, and outrage. Hashtags like #RipRobertCosbyJr, #MaryCosby, and #RHSLife flooded feeds. On Reddit, threads exploded with fans piecing together timelines, cross-referencing episodes, and dissecting Instagram posts for hidden clues. One fan wrote, "We watched this on TV, we saw him relapse. We saw Mary cry, and now he's gone. How do you even process that?" Another commented, "Addiction isn't entertainment. It's a nightmare, and Bravo has been filming it for years." Meanwhile, Shade Room and other pop culture platforms ran compilations of Robert's most harrowing confessions. Captions dripping with both sympathy and shock. The boy who told his mom he wanted to die is finally gone. Celebrity reactions added another layer of intrigue. Heather Gay posted, "No words are big enough. We love you, Mary," while Lisa Barlow wrote, "May you feel God's love and comfort today and always." Whitney Rose shared nothing but a broken heart emoji and a single dove over a black screen. Simple, silent, devastating. Even Julia Fox weighed in with a heartfelt message. "I will never get over this. I'm so sorry, Mary." These were public displays of mourning, but for those who knew the reality TV ecosystem, the absence of others, like Meredith Marks or Angie Katavis, was also a statement. Silence, in the social media era, is deafening. And in the context of a woman whose entire season arc revolved around the fear of losing her son, every public reaction, or lack thereof, was scrutinized and amplified behind the scenes. Sources hinted at tension within Bravo. Mary's story had always been a ratings driver, the emotional heartbeat of the Salt Lake City franchise. NBC Universal executives, according to leaks, were scrambling to figure out how to handle production for Season 7. Filming was supposed to start the week Robert died. Instead, the cameras stayed off, crews were briefed, and producers were forced to reconsider narrative arcs. How do you film a reality show when the central storyline has just turned into a tragedy too real to dramatize? Internal memos obtained by insiders reportedly directed cast members to exercise sensitivity, while also acknowledging that Mary's grief would inevitably become part of the narrative, whether anyone wanted it to or not. Mary's own handling of the tragedy was as raw as it was heartbreaking. She continued to post on Instagram, thanking fans for their prayers while mourning privately. Her posts were brief, measured, and filled with faith-based reflection, but the weight of public scrutiny never lifted. Every story, every comment, every mention of Robert Jr.'s death carried a dual purpose, grieving a son and performing the grief for an audience that had watched her family's struggles unfold for years. Mary's statement with Robert Sr., her husband, was similarly measured, anchored in scripture and faith. "Though our hearts ache, We take comfort in God's promise and in knowing He is finally at peace, yet insiders noted that Robert Sr. was silent otherwise, retreating behind a stoic public persona while helping Mary navigate the wreckage privately, the investigative side of the story. The details that no camera could capture painted a chilling picture. Robert's interactions in the weeks after jail included meetings with probation officers, attorneys, and close friends. Each day was a balancing act, navigating the pressures of public expectation, legal obligations, and the persistent lure of substances. Leaked documents suggest that he had appointments scheduled for counseling and substance use monitoring, but enforcement and oversight are notoriously inconsistent in the system. And for a 23-year-old who had been forced into sobriety for 2 months, even the smallest misstep could have catastrophic consequences. The phenomenon is well documented: post-incarceration overdose, tolerance drops, chemistry shifts, and the body can no longer withstand amounts that were previously survivable. For Robert Jr., 20 days of freedom became a deadly window. Social media users didn't just mourn. They theorized, investigated, and speculated. Was someone in the home responsible? Could more support have prevented this? Fans dissected Mary's posts, cross-referenced Bravo episodes, and combed through Robert's court and jail records. One viral thread suggested, he survived rehab, he survived jail, but the system failed him when he came back. 20 days, gone. The odds were stacked from the start. Another contributor wrote, Mary Cosby loved her son more than life itself. And yet, even that wasn't enough. The discussion blurred the line between entertainment commentary and real human grief. A testament to how entwined reality TV had become with the lives it portrayed, leaked insider accounts added to the sensationalism. One anonymous source claimed that Robert's last week had included a mix of hope and tension, small moments of laughter with his mother, and tense arguments over old habits and the limitations imposed by probation. Another source alleged that the final night included an argument, attempts to reach out for help, and the administration of Narcan, all before authorities arrived. These accounts, though unverified, created a narrative that felt plausible, terrifying, and utterly heartbreaking. Every detail fed the public's appetite for context, closure, and understanding. Even if the truth would remain partially obscured, the public wasn't just reacting emotionally. They were drawing connections. Reality TV, addiction, family pressure, and celebrity scrutiny were now intertwined in a national conversation about accountability and mental health. Reddit threads exploded with comparisons to other Bravo tragedies, discussions about post-incarceration support gaps, and debates over the ethics of filming addiction and relapses for entertainment. Many concluded the same thing. Robert Jr.'s death was not just a personal tragedy. It was a reflection of systemic failures, a cautionary tale about the collision of fame, disease, and public fascination. Meanwhile, the Bravo cast faced an impossible dilemma. Their central figure was in mourning, the narrative they had been building for seasons was now punctuated with real grief, and fans were watching every post, every story, every comment. Some offered condolences publicly, others privately, but no matter the method, the weight of expectation, empathy, and exposure was crushing. Mary's grief was not a storyline she could opt out of. It had already been broadcast, dissected, and analyzed. The show that thrived on drama now had to navigate tragedy, a narrative arc that no amount of scripting could resolve. Even news outlets that rarely focus on reality TV jumped in. ABC News, NBC, BBC, News, and TMZ covered the story extensively, framing it as both a human interest piece and a cautionary tale about addiction. Headlines emphasized the mother-son bond, the relapse, the legal troubles, and the tragic post-incarceration window that had claimed Robert Jr.'s life. Analysts debated the implications of filming addiction for television, with some praising Bravo for exposing raw truths and others criticizing the potential exploitation of human suffering. Amid all this, the haunting weight of Mary's reunion confession lingered. "I'd rather him be in jail than dead." 34 days later, that hypothetical became reality. It is a line that will forever be etched in Bravo history, not for entertainment, not for shock value, but for its tragic prescience. And it frames the entire narrative of Season 7 before it has even begun. Producers, cast, and fans alike now face the impossible question: how do you continue a story when the central figure has been confronted with unimaginable loss? The details, rumors, and speculations continue to surface. Fans dissect every episode, every clip, every Instagram post. Comment sections overflow with heartbreak, outrage, and disbelief. The Shade Room posted a clip from Season 5 highlighting Robert Jr.'s confessions about wanting to die, with a caption that read, "This is real life, not entertainment." And it ended too soon. Threads on Twitter debated the ethical responsibility of reality TV producers, the role of public exposure in mental health struggles, and the terrifying statistics of opioid relapse post-incarceration. This was no longer just a Bravo story. It was a national conversation about addiction, celebrity, family, and tragedy. The combination of fame, public scrutiny, legal entanglements, and untreated disease had converged in a way that left few untouched. Fans, media, and insiders alike continued to ask the same question: could more have been done? Was this preventable? And in the end, is it fair to turn real-life tragedy into content, even when it is the only lens the public has to engage with these stories? The tragedy of Robert Cosby Jr. sits at the intersection of countless pressures: parental love, addiction, fame, legal consequences, and public attention. Every detail we have, from Narcan being administered to social media posts to Bravo's pre-production shutdown, paints a picture of a young life caught in a storm he never asked for. And while the public mourns, the cameras wait, the producers strategize, and Mary Cosby navigates a grief that the world can see but cannot truly understand. And as we sit here, watching the cascade of social media reactions, news headlines, and insider leaks, one truth remains undeniable: reality TV is not just drama. Sometimes it is heartbreak, sometimes it is tragedy, and sometimes, as in the case of Robert Cosby Jr., it is a chilling reminder of how fragile life can be, even under the most watchful eyes. As the days pass after Robert Cosby Jr.'s death, the fallout was immediate, relentless, and impossible to ignore. Fans, media, and even casual Bravo viewers struggled to reconcile what they had watched on screen for years with the stark reality now splashed across every headline. Mary Cosby, once a polarizing figure in the franchise for everything from Smellgate to cult allegations and financial controversies, was now simply a mother shattered by the loss of her only child. Every scandal, every controversy she had endured over the past seasons suddenly seemed minor in comparison. Reality TV had framed her life for public consumption, but no script could have prepared anyone for this. Within hours of the news breaking, the Bravo world, typically quick to react with staged drama, took a collective pause. Heather Gay, Lisa Barlow, and Whitney Rose had already posted on social media, offering condolences and prayer. Others remained silent, including Meredith Marks and Angie Katavas, fueling speculation about private dynamics and unspoken tensions. Public reaction ranged from heartbreak to outrage, with viewers and social media commentators calling attention to the systemic failures surrounding addiction, post-incarceration care, and mental health support. One trending tweet read, "We watched this tragedy unfold on TV for years. Mary Cosby did everything she could. The system failed her son." The legal and investigative dimensions of Robert Jr.'s death quickly became a point of discussion. While the medical examiner's final toxicology report had not yet been released, the details surrounding Narcan administration, the post-incarceration window, and the prior felony charges created a narrative that was as much about systemic failure as it was personal tragedy. Experts in addiction medicine explained in interviews with ABC News and NBC that the first weeks after incarceration are the deadliest for individuals with opioid use disorders. Tolerance drops, the body is fragile, and the risk of relapse is exponentially higher. Robert Jr., despite completing a 30-day rehab program and attempting to reintegrate into life outside jail, was tragically within that high-risk period. Inside sources from Salt Lake City reported that the night of his death, tensions had escalated between Robert and those around him. Arguments about boundaries, probation conditions, and his fragile sobriety had reportedly erupted. There were rumors of a final, desperate attempt to seek help that arrived too late. Narcan was administered, 911 called, and paramedics arrived, but the intervention was insufficient. The young man who had once confessed on national television about wanting to die, who had bared his soul to his mother and millions of viewers, was gone. 23 years old, a lifetime of potential extinguished in a single, irreversible night. Mary Cosby's public statements remain measured, anchored in faith, but the grief was palpable. Our beloved son, Robert Jr., has been called home to the Lord, she and Robert Sr. said in a joint statement released to TMZ, People, and The Hollywood Reporter. Extended statements from the family's attorney emphasized Robert Jr.'s warmth, humor, and kindness, but also acknowledged the profound difficulty of comprehending the loss of someone so young. Social media erupted with support, but also speculation. Commenters debated whether Mary's high-profile public life and the constant scrutiny from reality TV amplified the pressures on Robert Jr., making his journey toward recovery exponentially more difficult. Behind the scenes at Bravo, production for Season 7 had been paused indefinitely. Filming was scheduled to begin the week of Robert Jr.'s death, and now the entire narrative arc for the upcoming season was in question. Sources claim that producers were weighing whether to incorporate Mary's grief authentically into the show, or to allow her a private mourning period before filming continued. The network faced an ethical conundrum. They had built a franchise around her family's struggles, and now reality itself had overshadowed scripted drama. Every moment of Mary's loss would inevitably become content, a public processing of private pain. The implications extended beyond television. Addiction specialists, journalists, and mental health advocates used the tragedy to highlight systemic gaps in post-incarceration care. Stories proliferated about other young adults who had relapsed after jail or rehab, often with fatal consequences. Commentators noted that Robert Jr.'s story exemplified a broader epidemic, a perfect storm of addiction, inadequate support, and public pressure. In interviews with ABC and NBC, experts emphasized that interventions like Narcan save lives, but are not foolproof. Ongoing supervision, mental health support, and stable environments are essential, yet frequently lacking. Even as the world grappled with the circumstances of Robert Jr.'s death, fans dissected every moment of his televised confessions. Season 5 footage of Robert Jr. admitting to using multiple substances, including Xanax, Adderall, cocaine, heroin, and oxycodone, went viral again. His declaration, "I wanted to die at the time. I just felt like a stain," took on a haunting resonance. His acknowledgement of Mary as the one reason he stayed alive became an indelible part of reality TV history. Andy Cohen, who had called the moment raw, real, and heart-wrenching, echoed across every media platform in retrospectives. This was not entertainment anymore. This was human life. This was human life. Reactions from other celebrities and former Bravo cast members continued to pour in. Julia Fox, Heather Gay, and Lisa Barlow's posts dominated feeds, but so did commentary from unexpected sources. Some analysts noted that Rihanna had previously reached out to Mary privately, highlighting the broader cultural awareness and empathy surrounding Robert Jr.'s struggles. Public conversations increasingly focused on the intersection of addiction, fame, and family, and the moral complexities of televising personal suffering for entertainment. The debate extended to discussions about Bravo's role in chronicling the trajectory of Robert Jr.'s addiction. Did the cameras provide a platform for awareness, or did they exacerbate pressures that might have contributed to his relapse? The Salt Lake City Police Department remained tight-lipped about specific details. Detective Michael Ruff confirmed the death, but the investigation's finer points, who was in the home who administered Narcan, and the sequence of events leading up to the fatal overdose were withheld pending the medical examiner's full report. Rumors circulated that the individuals involved were cooperating with authorities, but no formal statements were released. Meanwhile, media outlets like TMZ, People, The Hollywood Reporter, and News ran follow-up stories highlighting Robert Jr.'s legal troubles, prior arrests, and the timeline of his release. Every fact was scrutinized, analyzed, and amplified across social platforms. In Salt Lake City, the grief was intensely private yet painfully visible. Mary and Robert Sr. were left to navigate a landscape of loss that no parent should face. Robert Sr., described by Mary as her rock, maintained his quiet presence, helping her through each public statement and private moment of grief. Sources noted that family rituals, prayers, and private moments of reflection were ongoing, as Mary confronted the reality that the son she had nurtured, protected, and publicly championed was no longer alive. The legacy of Robert Jr.'s story is multifaceted. On one level, it is a sobering testament to the ravages of addiction and the post-incarceration risk window. On another, it is a reflection of the pressures of fame, public scrutiny, and reality TV. Mary Cosby, who has been controversial for years, now embodies the human cost behind the headlines. The personal loss that cannot be mitigated by fame, ratings, or scripted drama. And for viewers, fans, and the media, Robert Jr.'s death is a reminder that reality TV may capture drama, but life is irreversible. As speculation continues about how Season 7 of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City will proceed. One fact remains: the story of Mary Cosby and her son Robert Jr. will define it. Whether it is incorporated into the show with sensitivity or whether Mary steps away entirely, the ripple effects of this tragedy will be felt across the franchise. The Bravo machine, which has thrived on scandal, betrayal, and personal confession, now faces the challenge of balancing storytelling with empathy. And while the cameras may pause, the grief does not. It is raw, unfiltered, and irrevocable. Ultimately, Robert Cosby Jr.'s life and death highlight the intersection of human vulnerability, systemic failure, and public spectacle. He was a young man grappling with addiction, legal troubles, and the pressures of being a televised personality. He was a son, a friend, and a human being who, despite all efforts by family, legal advisors, and rehab programs, could not escape the cruel calculus of post-incarceration relapse. His mother, Mary, who has endured criticism, scandal, and controversy for years, now faces the ultimate personal tragedy, and the world, which has been watching for years, is left to process the implications, the dangers of addiction, the responsibilities of media, and the fragility of human life. In the end, every Bravo viewer, every social media commentator, every fan who has followed Mary Cosby's story is left with a singular, painful truth: reality television can illuminate lives, it can entertain, it can reveal raw humanity, but it cannot prevent tragedy. Robert Cosby Jr. was 23. He was gone. And Mary Cosby, who once said, "I'd rather him be in jail than dead," now confronts the unthinkable. The lessons, the grief, the heartbreak, all of it becomes a cautionary tale. A story that is both public and intensely private. A reminder that behind every headline, every viral clip, every Instagram post, there is a human life. And in Robert Jr.'s case, that life ended too soon. As we sit here, reflecting on Robert Cosby Jr.'s life, one thing is crystal clear: addiction doesn't discriminate. Fame, money, cameras, none of it can shield someone from the raw, unrelenting grip of this disease. Mary Cosby's heartbreak is real. Robert Jr.'s story is a wake-up call. It's a reminder that behind every Instagram post, every Bravo storyline, every viral clip, there are human lives, vulnerable and fragile, navigating battles we cannot always see. So here's the question we have to ask ourselves: what does it mean when reality TV captures tragedy in real time? When your private pain becomes content, who really benefits? And more importantly, how do we support the people we love when the stakes are this high? If someone you care about is struggling with addiction, don't wait. Reach out, make the call, be present, because 23 years old, gone in a single night. That is a reality none of us should ignore. If this story shook you, if it made you think, if it opened your eyes to the fragility of life behind the cameras, hit that like button. Share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more deep dives, more shocking truths, and more stories that reveal what really happens when the spotlight meets human fragility. Don't just watch, pay attention. Watch, pay attention.